In a geopolitical climate fraught with tension, President Donald Trump's recent statements and actions regarding the Russia-Ukraine conflict have caused significant concern among Western allies and democratic governments. As Ukraine intensifies its defense against Russian aggression, Trump's apparent alignment with Russian President Vladimir Putin, both rhetorically and diplomatically, has sparked fears that US policy could shift dramatically should Trump return to power. His conduct during and after a major Ukrainian military success against Russia raises unsettling questions about the future of American foreign policy, global alliances, and the very principles of democracy and national sovereignty. On June 1, 2025, Ukraine launched its most daring and complex aerial strike against Russia since the beginning of the war. The operation, dubbed Spider's Web, involved a coordinated swarm of over 100 drones targeting 5 Russian military airbases located deep within Russian territory. The airbases, Belaya, Dyagilevo, Ivanovo-Severny, Olenia, and Ukrainka, were selected for their strategic importance in housing Russia's long-range bombers and nuclear-capable aircraft. Ukraine's objective was clear: to cripple Russia's ability to launch sustained air campaigns against Ukrainian cities and infrastructure. The damage was reportedly extensive. Independent analysts and Western intelligence sources confirmed that dozens of Russian aircraft were damaged or destroyed, and multiple fuel and weapons depots were set ablaze. Though Russia attempted to downplay the losses, satellite images and drone footage circulating globally told a different story. One of an emboldened Ukraine inflicting a historic blow on a superior adversary. This operation not only showcased Ukraine's evolving military capability, but also marked a psychological victory, demonstrating that Russia's interior was no longer immune from the consequences of its unprovoked war. As the world reacted to Ukraine's unprecedented success, Trump remained conspicuously silent. Days later, he re-emerged into the public eye, not with a message of support for the embattled democracy, but to announce a 75-minute phone call with Vladimir Putin. In his account of the conversation, Trump referred to Putin as strong, strategic, and ready to retaliate. He noted that they discussed Ukraine's drone strikes, the future of peace negotiations, and Iran's nuclear ambitions, but, conspicuously absent from his remarks was any praise for Ukraine's resilience or condemnation of Russia's war of aggression. Before we dive deeper, if you're into this kind of breakdown, give the video a like, subscribe for more, and let me know your opinion in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Now on with the video. Trump characterized the conversation as good and productive, but offered no details on whether he had challenged Putin on Russia's continued occupation of Ukrainian territory, its indiscriminate bombings, or its human rights violations. Instead, Trump appeared to signal deference to the Kremlin's narrative, warning that Ukraine had gone too far and that Putin had no choice but to respond. This posture, coming from a US president and likely 2024 Republican nominee, is unprecedented. At a time when Western unity is critical, Trump's warm rapport with Putin and his willingness to echo the Russian leader's grievances undermines years of bipartisan support for Ukraine and honestly raises doubts about America's commitment to its allies. In the wake of his call with Putin, Trump suggested launching a US-led peace initiative to bring an end to the conflict. He proposed appointing a special envoy to open negotiations with Russia and other regional powers. But in a stunning diplomatic snub, Ukraine's government was not invited to participate in these initial discussions. This move drew immediate backlash from Kiev and raised red flags among European diplomats. For Ukraine, it was a stark reminder of historical betrayals when larger powers carved up territories without consulting the nations most affected. President Volodymyr Zelensky condemned the exclusion, stating that any negotiations conducted without Ukraine's full involvement were, quote, illegitimate and strategically dangerous. He accused Trump of trying to dictate terms to a sovereign nation while appeasing a known aggressor. By sidelining Ukraine, Trump appeared to validate one of Putin's central goals, to force the world into viewing the war not as an invasion, but as a dispute between two equal parties, both deserving of negotiation. Critics argue this framing legitimizes Russian territorial claims and jeopardizes Ukraine's long fight for independence, security, and self-determination. The diplomatic clash escalated when Trump publicly questioned Zelensky's legitimacy, calling him a, quote, dictator without elections. This accusation, which really has no basis in fact, was quickly echoed by Russian state media. Zelensky, who had postponed elections due to martial law during wartime, a constitutional and internationally accepted practice, fired back, accusing Trump of parroting Kremlin propaganda and failing to understand the realities of a nation under siege. The verbal sparring between the two leaders highlighted a growing ideological rift. Zelensky has emerged as a global symbol of democratic resistance, earning respect and support from Western capitals. Trump, meanwhile, has increasingly positioned himself as a skeptic of NATO, a critic of international alliances, and a figure sympathetic to strongman tactics. This tension not only jeopardizes bilateral relations, but also signals a potential rupture in the broader international coalition supporting Ukraine. If Trump's rhetoric translates into policy, the consequences could include reduced military aid to Ukraine, weakened sanctions against Russia, and emboldened autocratic regimes worldwide. Trump's overtures to Putin and his hostile posture toward Ukraine really reflect a broader reorientation of US foreign policy under his influence. During his presidency, Trump repeatedly expressed admiration for authoritarian leaders and, undermined traditional US alliances. Now, with the Ukraine war entering a critical phase, Trump's alignment with Russia risks shifting the global order away from liberal democracy and toward a world governed by spheres of influence, intimidation, and unchecked aggression. European leaders have voiced concern that a second Trump presidency would erode NATO's cohesion, embolden Russia's territorial ambitions, and leave Eastern European countries vulnerable. Many now worry that Trump's unpredictable behavior and apparent preference for autocrats could undo decades of diplomacy and destabilize the international system. Donald Trump's response to Ukraine's successful drone strike campaign against Russia and his subsequent engagement with Vladimir Putin marks a dangerous inflection point in United States foreign policy. Rather than championing a democratic ally fending off an unprovoked invasion, Trump has chosen to align himself with a belligerent autocrat, echo disinformation, and exclude Ukraine from critical peace discussions. These actions send a troubling message that America's support for democracy is conditional, and that power, not principle, determines the right to sovereignty and freedom. As the war continues, the world watches not just the battlefield in Ukraine, but the political battleground in the United States, where the future of global leadership and democratic integrity may soon be decided. Thanks for watching.